All right, so this is basically the first shop day after the races. Like the first time I'm putting in a shop time. So there's a lot we could talk about. You know what I mean? A lot of it is based on chain and so forth. So I think what we'll do is we'll go over that. What I'm actually going to do here in the shop is I'm going to work on this 395 sitting here. The oil pump's bad. I haven't got the new one yet, but we've done some video on it. It's a port job, but it's just a base gasket delete. And I think I'm going to go ahead and move forward to get the machine work done. Because, you know, that race is over, but there's more races. The big one is Saltfest, which is in October. So I want to get that 395 done. And I'm thinking about trying to get another one done in that time. A new 3-cube build, which is like your 50cc class. So I'm thinking about trying to get another one of those done. So yeah, what do you say we take a look at some chain? And there's a reason. Let me show you. So the chain I want to look at is this guy right here. This saw did so freaking fantastic at the races. The chain, all of it. That I was talking to Jody, and Jody strongly suggested that chain gets thrown in a package or on a wall and never, ever, ever touched unless I'm at a race. Something about that chain just destroys wood. And what do you say we just take a look at it? I mean, we placed second in the 4-cube on this. Nate ran it in the 5-cube. He placed third, and then he also ran it in the 6-cube. And he didn't get the, I think he might have gotten to the final 4 on the 6-cube, maybe. I can't remember exactly. You know what I mean though? Something about this is just extra special, and we want to save it. And I really want to take a look at it though, because I want to see if I can duplicate it. You know what I mean? I know the way it's ground, and I think it's the Raker. I think I got the Raker set like almost flawlessly. Like, I don't know. We're gonna take a close look to it. I'm gonna throw it in the vise. We'll take a good close zoom shot of it. You know what I mean? Another chain I need to work with is right here on the Husky 5000. I was having issues with this one. This is a brand new out of the box steel RS Pro chain. The problem is at the races, I could not get this thing. It just wouldn't eat wood. It didn't matter. I was pushing this thing to an extreme, and it just sat there and just screamed on the RPM, and it just wasn't devouring the wood the way I'd like it to. And I want to take a look, because sometimes when you buy these brand new chains, one will be better than another. You know what I mean? So I'm suspicious the Raker from the factory came out a little high on that one. And that's another one I want to take a look at. But for today, let's take a look at this chain, analyze it, and see. Alrighty? Alright, so there it is. She's on a 20-inch home light bar. And I hit that bar with a bar rail dresser to kind of, just to get it like freaking perfect. I didn't want a bunch of wiggle, and you can see, like, she is nice. Not a bunch of wiggle in it at all. You know what I mean? She just glides through there like perfect and perfectly straight and everything. It is, if you can see here, let me do a zoom. You can see the Husqvarna emblem. This started life as a C83. And you can see though, it's not the C83 profile. I sharpened that. Look at them rivets. Look how highly polished they are. That's just from running it. There's some nice highly polished rivets, I'll tell you. I didn't do that. That just came naturally from running it. And you can see there's no chassis modifications. It's just sharpened with the Raker set, you know. Here's what she looks like from the top plate, and you can see the line. You can see I'm just ever so slightly steeper, you know what I mean? Not a whole lot, but I am a little bit steeper on the top plate than what their factory line is. And if you take a look, you can see that I have taken some off the Raker. Let's look up underneath here. What's she look like from here? It's obvious. I mean, you can see that I've ground it. It's obviously been, you know, a ground chain that I've done. There's nothing there by hand. But she definitely came out at like the sweet spot, you know what I mean? I showed Bodie these angles. He came at my event and he got to sit down with me at the grinder, and these are the exact same angles that I showed him. I actually ground him up a chain and sent him home with it, but that chain, the Raker was too deep on that chain. It wouldn't cut very well. So he would have to copy my grind and take more off and get the Raker set the way that I set them in order for that chain to perform well, you know. I discovered that the Raker on my grind, it prefers to be a little higher. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to figure out what that Raker is set to. I'm going to get a little precise with it. Yeah, okay, so I just went through the process. So what I'm doing is I'm using this guy, and I'm just setting it across the teeth with it loose. You know, I'm using it loose, and I set it on there, and I push, yeah, until that slider rides like perfectly smooth across that Raker. You know what I mean? And then you know, you turn it up, turn it over, you tighten that knob up, and what I'm using is my caliper here, but I'm using down here at the step side, and I'm kind of doing the best I can to come up with a depth. So it looks like I am averaging about 22 thousandths, 23 thousandths, somewhere in there. They're not all perfect because I just used the Husqvarna Raker gauge, and I kind of tweaked it to kind of give me a little higher Raker setting because my grind is a little more aggressive, you know what I mean? And they're averaging about 22, 23 thou on the Rakers. So yeah. So I think in the future I'll start working at getting a little more precise with my Raker settings. I'm still finding that one chain might be a little hungrier than another, and I think that's me, and just the way I'm using the Raker gauge and just freaking slamming it out like real quick with the file. You know what I mean? I'm not really trying to be precise. I'm just, you know, filing Rakers real quick, you know? And I think being a little more precise with it in the future will help. I might even look at setting up a dial indicator so that I can really get into these Rakers and fine tune them, you know what I mean? You know, that's kind of, I mean, there's something about this chain. She's definitely a quick one, you know what I mean? Now you'll notice that my chain are probably a little bit on the tight side. A lot of folks prefer to run them a little sloppy. Some guys run them really, really loose. I don't do that. I kind of learned my lesson a while back that by having a loose chain, whenever you're making your down cut and then you switch into your up cut, or even whenever you're at the top of the wood and you switch from an up cut to a down cut, I discovered that, well, I made a mistake a while ago, that when I was doing that, and I was kind of still moving sideways when I hit the wood, and it caused the chain to roll over, and you know, it cost me. So ever since then, I don't leave my chains loose, at least loose enough that they could do that. You know what I mean? I've been keeping them nice and snug. So you'll notice that some people prefer to run their chains a bit on the loose side, and some of them are really sloppy. I kind of learned my lesson a while ago that could cost me in the long run. You know what I mean? Could cause me to make a mistake. So I decided not to do that. And they do that to help with wood chip clearing and so forth. And I honestly, I don't see a whole lot of a difference. Um, I have done testing between a tight chain and a loose chain in the past, and I found that the tight chain did come out faster. And it was because the chain gets pulled on the wood a little bit, and with a loose chain, you can pull it and actually kind of throw off your angles slightly. The attack of the tooth into the wood. So it didn't make a whole lot of a difference, but part of it was like, if you apply enough pressure to your cut, that problem kind of goes away. So, it's one of those things. Sometimes it could help you, sometimes it might not. Now, as per Jody's advice, I'm not going to touch this chain. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to make any cuts with it. It's going to get saved for the next race. It performed so well that we're just going to leave it and not do anything. You know what I mean? The only change I plan on making here is with the dogs. So you'll notice that I still have the dogs on there intact. I'm going to nip the edges off and kind of round them over. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I plan on doing with this saw moving forward. That's it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it as is. Now, I did have the saw tuned just a tiny bit on the rich side. Just a tiny bit. I don't think it would have made a difference if I leaned it out that little nibble. But you never know. You know what I mean? It could have. It may not have. I mean, that one race was down to like, what was it, a tenth of a second, or just a hair over a tenth of a second between me getting first and second place. And if I had it leaned out that tiny nibble, would it actually have pulled ahead? I don't know, I mean, if you pay attention to the videos, you'll hear the saw. She's got a lot of burble on the top end, and it's a sign that it is running a little on the rich side. I normally do lean it out just a little bit more than what it was, but she was running good, and I felt like I should just leave well enough alone. You know what I mean? Now, I think one of the most common comments I get on this saw, so it is a pull-on 445, as you see, but the top end is a 48 millimeter top end. And I think one of the most common comments I get is about that sticker right there, Dub Saw Shop. A lot of folks think that he built this. And that sticker is on there because I acquired it from Dub Saw Shop. But I did build it. I think it's quite funny when people see it and they're like, oh, TW built that saw. You know what I mean? A lot of times I don't even correct them. I think it's funny, you know what I mean? But yes, I did build this. I acquired it from TW down there, Dub Saw Shop, and that's how I acquired the saw. That's why it's got that sticker on there. He sent me the sticker. I didn't have to put it on his saw, but I did. You know what I mean? And the saw is starting to gain in popularity, I guess, because of how good it's doing. And we got a TW sticker on there, so maybe it helps to advertise them a little bit. You know what I mean? But yes, she is a pull-in 445, but it does have the 48 millimeter top end on it from like a 415 or whatever. You know what I mean? It is a true 65cc build. Another thing you can look at is the muffler here. You can see how she's starting to get a little oozy. It's kind of a sign of, I might be running it a little on the rich side, or something about the port work could be off, that I'm spitting a lot of fuel out. But I think the tune is just a little bit on the fat side, that you're seeing signs like that. You know what I mean? I'll probably lean it out just a tiny nibble before the race here in October. Try to get a little bit more out of it, But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy here. I think she has a little bit more in it though. She's running extremely stable and smooth and stuff right now. I could easily go into it, and I think I could get more out of it. I think I could get a half decent amount more out of it. It runs so good. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I should just leave well enough alone. You know what I mean? Now, the only other things to mention here is that, yes, I did run Moto Milk at the races. On everything. All my saws had Moto Milk, and whether or not that made a difference, I couldn't tell you. I could notice a difference in the home light. I think this one might have noticed a tiny bit of a difference, but I don't know if it was a good or bad. But I think it was for the better. And the rest of them, I couldn't notice a difference whatsoever. But the one thing that might have helped me is that, so I've heard that the Moto Milk runs cooler. It helps your engine run cooler. And it was a 90-degree day that we were out there cutting wood. And I typically find that a lot of my saws do start losing performance in those hot days. And this one did not seem to do that. In fact, I didn't see a loss of performance in any of my saws. And it's possible that if the Moto Milk was helping to keep the engine run cooler, that could have helped give me an edge on the hot day. But that's the only thing that I could possibly think of that the Moto Milk may have helped out with. Normally I do run Red Armor, and for this I set everything up with Moto Milk, so that's the only assumption I can make there with the Moto Milk, that if it does really help an engine run cooler, it probably helped me on the really hot day running in the races. You know what I mean? Now, the numbers on this saw, I've talked about it before. That's why I say that I could go back into this thing. The numbers on this saw are not that, like, they're not wild and crazy. It's the exhauster sitting at around 98. Transfers are like 120, 22, somewhere in there. And the intake, I think, if I remember correctly, it's sitting at like 83 to 85 degrees. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm pretty certain I could take this to a 96 roof, probably do a touch more on the transfers, and I probably wouldn't touch anything with the intake. But, you know, I'm pretty certain I could do that, and it would still run just fine. And in fact, it might even help stretch it out a little higher in the RPM, make it wind out a little more. But I'm pretty happy with the way it is, to be honest with you. I think the numbers that I'm running really helped it with running in the larger saw classes. You know what I mean? It helped give it a little bit of that more of that grunt to help run against some of the larger saws and that bigger wood and all that stuff, you know? But yeah, I mean, she's not a crazy number kind of build. And when I say crazy, I mean, you'll see saws running out there with a 90-degree exhaust roof and 116-degree transfer. I mean, that's 116 is a high transfer. And in their intakes, though, some of them won't run that high of or an 83 in the intake. Some of them will run like an 86 in intake, or some of them will run like an 80-degree intake or whatever. I find a lot of differences in the intake timing. But yeah, there's stuff out there with a 90-degree exhaust roof and really high transfers and stuff. But this isn't one of them. This is very typical of a build that you would see folks do for a firewood type of build. So yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd put this video together because I don't know. Jody gave me the advice to save this chain, and we're going to do that. This saw really performed well. It really liked this chain the way it was set up, and we're going to keep it as is. We're going to, you know, try to hang on to this setup right like this for as long as we can until she goes dull on us or whatever, and then we'll work it, you know, tweaking it again. But, you know, if all we're doing is running in this chain in the race, it'll be a long time. If anything, I'll save this chain and see if I can do something that outperforms it. You know what I mean? If I can find something to outperform it, then heck yeah, you know, this one will get retired. But for now, we're staying as is. So yeah, thought I'd throw this little video together for you. Later.